Hi, my name is Meg Harvey. I'll be presenting on behalf of my co-authors, Deborah Perales and Jeremy Pasquereau, on our preliminary results for a survey of the Cmiique Iitom language. Cmiique Iitom is a language isolate. It's spoken on the west coast of Mexico, primarily in two different villages. The first is El Desemboque to the north here, and the second is Punta Chueca, a little further south. So for today, I'll just be talking about respondents in El Desemboque, but we are expanding the survey to include Punta Chueca. So this survey is being conducted as part of a larger NSF grant, and part of the funding of that grant is available to support community initiatives. There were two goals with this survey. Number one was to find existing revitalization projects and community initiatives that we can support, as well as identifying future ones. There are already a lot of projects underway. We would like to ensure that we can support those. And something like a survey is necessary because it helps us ensure that we're not just supporting ones that are already very visible due to, for example, having more funding behind them or being connected to an institution. We also want to be able to support smaller projects or ones that aren't connected with institutions. Another issue is that sometimes completed projects are only accessible to some parts of the community, and we'd like to be able to support those people in getting their work out to more speakers. And then, of course, sometimes a project isn't explicitly linguistic. It might be overlooked if we're not doing a systematic look at what people are interested in. And then the second goal of the survey was just to gather information on the use of Seri. Who is using it? When are they using it? And where? So a lot of that information about supporting different revitalization efforts could probably be best gathered by going there, spending an extended amount of time, and talking to a variety of people. But we wanted to supplement it with a survey as well for two reasons. Number one is that variety of people point. We wanted to be able to systematically check that we weren't just talking to the same group of people every time, and therefore not really varying where we could provide support. The second reason is because we needed to do a hybrid data collection method where we had some in-person data collection and some remote data collection. And we could change on a dime if need be. So one of these reasons is going to be familiar from many collaborations. While the author conducting the interviews, Deborah lives in the area. Jeremy and myself are in different countries. That mostly concerns the back end, but there's also some like adaptation of the survey, et cetera, that had to be done remotely. The second reason is that this project was started in 2020 when pretty much all international travel and most local face-to-face contact was at best discouraged. And we wanted a process that could be safely conducted even with these fluctuating public health concerns. So something that was not going to pressure people to be face-to-face when that wasn't safe. Because of this, we wanted something that could be comfortably delivered via phone or in an in-person interview. We wanted to be able to focus on qualitative data. So we were going to have a bit more of a conversation, so we couldn't just use a physical survey. And then we wanted to be able to encourage respondents to elaborate, but still ensure we have people talking about the same broad topics. The survey consisted of around 7 questions, each with prompts or suggestions in case the conversation came to a halt. Each of these questions was provided in Spanish or Seri, depending upon the respondent's preference, and they were all provided conversationally rather than in a written form. So here I have an example of one question. So we have the question here in Spanish and then the English translation. Are there situations in which you never speak Seri? What are they? We have the prompt here in case the conversation, in case it's so broad a question that's difficult to answer. And then we have a further prompt to keep the conversation going. So just real quick, here's the full survey in English. Feel free to pause on this slide if you'd like to read it. Now moving on to methods. So despite our hybrid design, we ended up only needing the face-to-face approach, and Deborah did all the interviews in person and then recorded the conversations in Seri or Spanish. Transcriptions were then provided in both Seri and Spanish with a Spanish translation for the Seri. And I just want to reiterate that all of these responses were oral rather than written. So at this point, these are just preliminary results. So we only have 4 participants, all of whom are women, and from El Desemboque, aged 32 to 66 years old, and who were recruited by word of mouth. They also each filled out a demographic questionnaire to assess their language background, as well as this information we have here that's sort of helping us say, oh, okay, we need more variety in our participants. So on to results. We divided the results into 3 different categories. The first is for questions about the use of Seri, second for what's being done to support Seri, and then third for what folks would like to see done in order to support the community. So everyone said that they spoke Seri every day, including to their kids. They also said that they considered it very important to maintain the use of Seri, particularly with kids. They also commented that there was a lot more Spanish influence that they noticed now than during their childhood. 2 of the 4 participants knew how to read and write in Seri, and 1 participant wanted to learn. And then many people mentioned that they don't use Seri with doctors. No one reported that they did use Seri with their doctors. And while, of course, the reason that particular environment came up is because we prompted it, I think it's still worth noting sort of the ways in which there's linguistic barriers in institutions. So what is already being done to support Seri? There's a lot of emphasis on using Seri with young people. 1 participant reports telling stories to children and teaching how to write particular words. Another reports teaching children the name of seashells, birds, and plants. People are also organizing traditional celebrations, especially the New Year celebration. And people are also creating materials, but this does bring us back to that point about accessibility, because, for example, an animated movie was made about a Seri creation myth in collaboration with Seri teenagers, but none of the participants have seen it. So perhaps something we can do is provide support for greater accessibility of existing materials. Finally, how can we support Seri going forward? So it seems like we saw requests for more use of Seri in institutions, have teachers who speak Seri, doctors, etc. Really essentially any institution that people have to interact with, having more support for that language community was something that people would be kind of interested in. The other main interest was creating and using pedagogical materials in Seri, as well as generally raising awareness amongst parents about the language, and supporting traditional celebrations like the New Year's one we mentioned. Specifically, people are interested in maybe having a culture officer or someone else who is supported in organizing and promoting these. So it seems like the general takeaways are Spanish is more prevalent now than in respondents' childhoods. Not all children are fluent in Seri, which confirms a previous result in O'Mara et al. 2022, where school-aged children were interviewed about Seri use. And then in general, the fact that there is a desire for the language and culture to be supported, specifically with things like instructors who speak the language, or providing reading and writing, which would make it easier for people to create certain types of materials. As far as the survey design, carrying out the survey in a hybrid way was harder than we anticipated, but we will go back to the field soon where we'll finish it and have a wider variety of people that we've spoken with. So I just want to thank Heidi Harley, John Powell, and Robert Henderson for their comments, and to all the participants for sharing their observations and time. And here we just have references.